I want to show you these pictures because I believe that Argentina is of vital importance to you and to me and to every other American citizen. For Argentina is outstanding in wealth and progress in South America, a leader on her own continent, and a rival of the United States in the affairs of the Western Hemisphere. Whether this rivalry becomes friendly or bitter may depend upon how well we understand the reasons for it. Argentina has the towering Andes on her western border, and rocky, arid hills in the south, a long, vulnerable coastline on the east, and running from the broad center of the country north toward Paraguay, nearly 100,000 square miles of natural pasture land, the pampas. The people of Argentina are much like us, more perhaps than any other people in South America, spirited, aggressive, energetic, proud of their heritage and their personal accomplishments. But there are underlying differences between us and these people, for their roots are deep in the old world culture of Spain and France and Italy. More than that, the Spaniards who settled here were soldiers and adventurers seeking gold, while New England was colonized by farmers and tradesmen seeking freedom. Argentina covers a big area, as large as the United States east of the Mississippi. But for every human being in Argentina, there are 10 in the United States. The Spaniards who came here first did not stay because they found no gold, only a few hostile Indians. Not for many years did the Spaniards, and after them the English, Italians, and Germans, realize the riches that lay in the earth of Argentina. The first permanent settlement was in 1580, but even in 1800, there were only 1 million people in the entire country. In 1905, Buenos Aires had only 1 million people, but today it is the third largest city in the Western Hemisphere. Far from the traditional picture of a lazy Latin American capital, it is brisk, modern, and magnificent. Its crowded traffic, left-hand drive as in England, its handsome streets and business buildings combine to give the casual visitor the impression of a great European capital. Residents of Buenos Aires are proud of their 3 subways. They are short lines compared to the New York system, but they are clean, efficient, and colorfully decorated. Buenos Aires has smart shops, as fine as those of London and New York, and expensive too. North American motion pictures are enormously popular, even though some of the bitterest complaints about Hollywood's lack of taste and accuracy in portraying Latin Americans have come from Argentina. But they want their own motion pictures, in their own language, and are capable of making them. In small but efficient studios, they are turning out good films, using Argentine actors, directors, and writers. Buenos Aires is not fine and modern. This is the Boca, an old and gaudy but picturesque waterfront section, lined with cheap shops and cafes and dance halls. Cabarets is uptown, but gaudy too, and more popular with gay young Argentines than with their conservative elders. More important to the cultural life of the country is the Teatro Colón, where great singers and musicians have come from all over the world. Here the aristocracy lives well, in houses which are a constant surprise to those North Americans who suspect that all South Americans live primitively. But the old families of the nation live conservatively and graciously. They attend a church like this one, where they are steeped in the devout traditions of their Spanish ancestors, who were buried with pomp in the picturesque cemetery of Recoleta. Argentina's government is modeled on that of the United States, with a president, a Congress, powerful provincial governors, and a constitution which, with few exceptions during 80 years, has protected the rights of free speech, free press, and free assembly. The newspapers of Buenos Aires are famous throughout the world. They truly speak for their people with strength and eloquence. Papers like La Prensa and La Nación print more foreign news than the New York Times. La Prensa has done distinguished work in offering free medical and legal consultations, well-equipped consulting rooms, and a capable staff of doctors and lawyers are employed in this humanitarian service. Argentina has long tried to steer clear of Europe's troubles, but she is wise enough to know that she may not always succeed. So she looks to her defenses, trains her men, and prepares with the largest and strongest military force in South America to defend her land. Argentina, and above all Buenos Aires, might be poor indeed if it were not for world trade. More than most countries, she depends upon intercourse with foreign nations through these docks. They are far from the docks of the other great world markets. Nevertheless, Argentina has become a leader of world commerce, but war and the blockade have seriously hurt her economy. One of this country's most pressing problems is her lack of natural resources, but to her credit, she makes the most of what she has. A government oil company is working feverishly to develop its small oil resources, but still there is no iron or coal or copper, and for these, Argentina is reluctantly dependent upon other nations. Having few rich mineral resources of her own, she is naturally confined to light industry, like shoes and textiles. But even this machinery must be imported. and her assembly plants for cars and refrigerators must get their parts from abroad. A national custom is the barbecue, here called an asado, a glorified meal in the gaucho manner, where 1,500 pounds of meat are being consumed by 500 people with only bread and wine. Dietitians might disapprove, but Argentines thrive on it. Though the wealthy city dwellers have always looked to Europe for cultural guidance, many intellectuals are now becoming interested in their own colorful traditions, such as the songs and dances of the gaucho. Argentina's artists, like the great caricaturist Molina Campos, are turning toward the land for inspiration, toward the hard-riding, fun-loving gaucho, Indian and Spanish, the half-wild nomadic cowboy who first settled on the land and herded the wild cattle. Even his sports are affectionately pictured by Campos, like his hunting of the wild ostrich with the bolo, a kind of sling made of two balls tied together on a leather thong. This, when thrown, winds around the bird's legs and trips it up. But ostrich hunting is only a game, and the great estancia is a working proposition. Here is a ranch of 10,000 acres, 6 miles long and 3 miles wide, the sort of minor kingdom the land-owning aristocracy is fighting to preserve, for it is the very heart of Argentina. This is an agricultural country without an agricultural population, as we know it. They do not need many farm workers, because a single gaucho can take care of 1,000 cows. A sort of feudal system has been preserved here. The wealth of the owners is great. The life of the peons is hard and bleak, despite the fertility of the land. Is fertile, almost unbelievably so. The soil is 10 feet thick, rich and black, the deposited silt of thousands of years. But in our country, the average topsoil is only 1 foot thick. Argentina is one of the world's great granaries, raising each year more than 1 million tons of corn and wheat. The climate is so mild and even that alfalfa grows 5 crops a year. The men who herd livestock can sleep outdoors the year round. There are 4 sheep for every human being in Argentina, lamb and mutton and wool enough for half the world, brought here originally by canny sheep herders from Scotland. Each season, thousands of yearlings are broken in, horses whose ancestors once ran wild on the great pampas. Here are the owners at luncheon, big, hearty men, eating a heavy meal of meat, bread, wine, and fruit. At this ranch, unlike some others, the owners supervise the work themselves. After luncheon, they sip mate, the herb tea which Argentina drinks in such great quantities. Mate is sipped from a hollow gourd through a silver tube called a bombilla. They are concerned with Argentina's greatest problem, her cattle. In the early days, the scrubby cattle ran wild by the millions, and the landowners had no vision of their great future. Then in 1857 came the railroads, and this meant an outlet for the lush fields of wheat and corn of the fertile pampas. And in 1877, another miracle happened. The first refrigerated ship came to Argentina. As North American life was developed and transformed, first by the railroad and then the automobile, so the railroads and the refrigerated ship transformed the life of Argentina. This new kind of shipping meant that for the first time, fresh Argentine beef could be shipped to all the world. Soon the Argentines began to take their cattle seriously. They imported the best and most expensive breeds, Shorthorn, Angus, and Hereford. Over $1 billion in British capital was invested in the railroads to carry the beef and the grain to shipping centers. All these cattle must eventually arrive at the market. And the great markets are in the city, like this Mercado near Buenos Aires. Here come buyers from the great packing houses or frigorificals to buy cattle at auction. Many are native Argentines, representing local firms. Others are Texans, Canadians, or British, representing firms like Swift, Armour, Wilson, or Anglo, with many millions of foreign capital invested here. And although American capital is here, plus American management and machinery, none of this chilled or frozen beef can be sold in the United States. The sanitary regulations of our government make it impossible for any country where foot and mouth disease of cattle exists to ship fresh meat here, because the spread of the disease would destroy our herds. On the other hand, Argentina is a large country, and certain sections, such as southern Patagonia, have never had this disease. So the whole nation is angered at our refusal to import fresh meat, even from Patagonia. Basically, it is a story of economic rivalry, the difficult problem of two great nations who produce the same foodstuffs, who could together feed the world. Canning meat requires clean hands, so these girls get a manicure before beginning work. Here they are packing cooked meat, the only form in which it may be imported into the United States. There are two sides to the meat question, with good arguments on each side. When it is examined thoroughly, without animosity, it may be settled to everyone's satisfaction. But until it is, we can never be truly good neighbors. Meanwhile, the government has turned to other solutions for her growing economic problems. Smaller, specialized farms and clearinghouses for their products are being established. like this modern dairy, which buys milk from neighboring estancias and bottles it for sale in the cities. Here is dried milk being prepared for export. Eggs are also being shipped abroad. Vineyards are producing grapes for Argentina's excellent wines. And all of this specialization in farming and food processing is receiving attention and aid from the government. Slowly but surely, the great estancias are breaking up, because like the huge haciendas of Mexico, they best serve the needs of only a privileged few. In the final analysis, it is the needs of the common man which South America must serve, her own underprivileged of the country and city. And she is slowly turning her eyes away from Europe, back to her own hemisphere. In this critical period, when a new price has been put upon earth and the food it yields, Argentina is reevaluating her own land and the people.